Down through the centuries, these two men, the priest and the Levite, have got a very bad press. Some of it perhaps was justified, but really they weren't bad men, as the bad press would suggest. I suspect, without knowing much about them, that they were in fact ordinarily good men, but caught up in an extraordinarily bad system. They see the man in the ditch who has been stripped and beaten to the point of almost of death by the robbers. And they walk by on the other side, not because they were bad men, but they had a serious problem looking at the man in the ditch. You see, their job was in the temple, serving in the temple. That's how they fed their families. That was their income. And in order to perform that job in the temple, they had to maintain themselves in what was called ritual purity. And you see, the man in the ditch was naked, and therefore they couldn't tell whether he was Jew or Gentile. In the Middle East then, and even now, your ethnic identity is signalled by your dress. So they didn't know whether he was Jew or Gentile, and they couldn't take the risk of going close and touching a Gentile, because that would have rendered them ritually impure, and therefore disqualified from their work in the temple, and therefore unable to feed their families. It was their job that was at stake. The other thing they didn't know was whether the man was alive or dead. We're told he's half dead, but looking at him from the other side of the road, he may well have looked dead. And again, they couldn't take the risk, because if they went over and touched a dead body, they were again ritually impure and disqualified from work, and therefore unable to feed their families. So you see what I mean about a bad system. It wasn't that they were bad men, but they were trapped in this bad system. These were men who were extremely keen to obey God's law. They were devout Jews. But this system didn't even enable them to obey the law. Because, as we've heard from the book of Deuteronomy, the law is not beyond your strength or beyond your reach. In fact, at the heart of the law there was the command to walk across the road and do something to help the man in the ditch. They make it seem impossible, or the system does, but in fact it's not beyond your reach. All you've got to do is walk across the road. The word is very near you. It's as near as the body in the ditch. It's in your mouth and in your heart for your... So this is not rocket science, what it means to obey the law of God. It simply means walk across the road, not beyond your reach, and do what the Samaritan... Who could have believed it? A Samaritan. The Jews hated the Samaritans. Why? Because they had been implants from elsewhere long ago, from another part of the Assyrian Empire. They were transplanted and plonked in the northern part of the Holy Land. And they took over the religion of Israel. They were regarded as usurpers of the land and the religion of Israel. So they were hated as usurpers. So here you've got the least likely candidate to do what he does. The insiders can't manage it. The outsider manages it, and how? Doesn't just pour oil on his wounds and bandage them, puts him on his donkey, and then takes him to the inn and pays the bill. Goes way beyond the call of duty. There's a kind of madness caught up in it, but that's what the law of God entails. Now, the danger is that we too can be more or less good people. I can tell by looking at you. You're fine. You're the usual mix of good and bad. That's the fate of any human being. But good people can be caught up in a bad system. Now, the church is supposed to be God's good system in a world full of bad systems. We heard from St. Paul a splendid vision of the church, which is not just another clapped-out human institution, bad system, but, says Paul, the church is Christ's body. He's the head, but we're the body. We are intimately, totally united to Jesus Christ crucified and risen. A place where peace and reconciliation and mercy happen. That's what the church is supposed to be, but you know, and I know probably even better than you, that the church too at times can be a bad system. It's not hard to find the evidence. Now here today we see that truth, as God does, but we see that it's not the truth about the church, that we are called to be God's good system. Turning away from all the bad systems, turning them on their head, saying no to them, as we do by coming here to the Cathedral this morning. And what does that mean? It means that the church is above all a hearth of mercy. We see this brilliantly in this year of mercy. Look at the banners up here. Merciful like the Father. The Father is always the one who crosses the road and picks us up. We're all in the ditch. And we stay there and we die there unless he comes to get us, which he does in Jesus. That's what Jesus is. That's what Jesus means. So a merciless or unmerciful church is a contradiction in terms. It simply means that the church is another bad system and not the good system that is radically countercultural and is the revolution of God on the face of this earth. Does it all look too hard for the church to be the good system? Again, the words of Deuteronomy. It is not beyond our strength. It's not beyond our reach. Why isn't it beyond our strength? Because it's not just a matter of our strength. There is a strength from on high. We call it grace that is given to us. We are weak but made strong. We are merciless and we are made merciful by that power which is not ours. So here today we hear the voice of Christ say, cross the road, go down into the ditch, pick up those who have been stripped and beaten to the point almost of death, whoever they are and wherever they are, whatever the ditch may be, get down into the ditch, the church that goes down across the road and gets down into the ditch, mud on the boots, shedding blood from the heart that is wounded. All of this not beyond our strength, not beyond our reach. The call is very near to you. It is in your mouth and in your heart. Amen.